Right, start again. Right, welcome everybody to the meeting of the Licensing and General Purposes Committee for Monday, the 27th of November. Our agenda to start off. First of all, can you authorise me, please, to sign the minutes of the meetings of the Licensing and General Purposes Committee on the 17th of April 2023? That one first. Are you happy with that? Agreed. And secondly, the 24th of May 2023? Agreed. Thank you very much. And I'll now sign them. Thank you. Right, next we come to apologies and substitutes. Are there any apologies, please?
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillors Hacking and Stanger, and Councillor Biggs is present as substitute for Councillor Hacking. Thank
you very much, and welcome, Councillor Biggs. That's great. Are there any additional agenda items, please?
No, there are none.
And disclosures of interest. Can I have any disclosure of interest by members of any personal and disclosable pecuniary interest in matters on the agenda, please? Councillor Tempe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Personal involvement in Manor Barn.
Thank you very much. Are there any others? No others. Good. Then we move to the main business of the meeting, which is the polling places review. And I'd like to ask Richard Adams to get us up to date on that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so the report we have here is following a polling places review that we've conducted. You'll see in the timetable on, I think it's page 3, that we've held a 6-week public consultation as part of the review, which began on the 2nd of October and concluded on the 13th of November. As stated in the report, the review is something that we're required to do roughly every 5 years to ensure that our polling districts and polling places are up to date and fit for purpose. We've included a final proposed polling scheme as Appendix 2 with the report, which also includes the comments and proposals that we received from members of the public and other stakeholders who were invited to comment, along with the acting returning officers' comments for both Bexhill and Battle and Hastings and Rye. The purpose of the report is to recommend to Council that the scheme of the polling scheme in Appendix 2 is adopted, and that the Chief Executive's current delegated authority to agree necessary changes of polling place after consultation with the Chair of the Licensing and General Purposes Committee, relevant district ward members, county council member and parish or town council should continue. I don't know if you want me to do a further read-through of some of the highlights, as it were, of the report, or I'm happy just to take questions on any aspect of the report.
I think it would be helpful if you just go through the main recommendations.
Yeah,
that would be appreciated.
That's fine. Okay, so I won't go through the actual legislation part at the start, but you can see that starting on page 4 of the report, we've made 6 recommended changes to the existing polling scheme. The first of these is in Bexhill Quhurst ward and Bexhill St Stephen's, so it's polling districts in both of those wards. The current polling place for those 3 polling districts is Bexhill Leisure Centre. This has been the polling station since for the last few years, following previously using St Stephen's Church Hall, which is no longer available for use. Bexhill Leisure Centre is, although it's a good venue, a good venue and a large venue, it's not considered ideal as it's located outside of the polling district for 2 of the 3 polling districts. So we're recommending that under the circumstance that the whole of the polling district is designated as the polling place to allow for an alternative venue to be used if another venue becomes available in future. The second recommended change is in Bexhill Sackville District Ward. Similar situation in that we're proposing that the whole of the polling district is designated as the polling place going forward. The reason for this is that the previous polling station, St Mary Magdalene's Church Hall, is currently unavailable due to repair works. We did use Manor Barn for both polling districts at the previous elections, but for the reasons stated in the report, we're now proposing to use St Barnabas Church in Sea Road at the upcoming parish by-election. The reason we're not actually proposing that we use St Barnabas Church full-time is that we haven't yet used it. We want to see at the by-election how the use of the venue goes, and then make a decision going forward as to whether we continue to use that, whether we revert to using Manor Barn or possibly St Mary Magdalene's Church Hall. Councillor.
Thank you. Just about the use of St Barnabas Church, you'll be aware, maybe not, of the plans for St Barnabas, so they will probably affect its long-term use, will they not?
Yes, and that's another reason why we're not looking to permanently designate it as the polling place at the moment. What you're referring to, I think, is the redevelopment within the venue. I think there's some office space and other things being put in. We have had the plans explained to us by the key holder of the venue, but we're going to hedge our bets, as it were, on that one. Okay. And sorry, Chair, I think I should have probably referred to you just a second ago when I answered the question. So that's the situation in Bexhill Sackville. I'm happy to go into that in a bit more detail if anyone has any questions on that. Bexhill Sidley, the previous polling place, All Saints Community Hall, is no longer available. It's now being used by the school, which is next door, and therefore is not available for us to hire. In May, we used the Sidley Freedom Church, which as a dual polling station with the other polling district in Sidley. That seemed to go very well. I think that we were quite pleased with how that worked. However, it is outside of the polling district that we were previously using All Saints Community Hall for. So we've proposed that the polling district is designated as the polling place to allow for us to use an alternative venue if a venue within the polling district becomes available in future. The fourth change is Rye Foreign. The current polling place, the Playden Women's Institute Hall, is not in the polling district. So this is another dual polling station which is being used for two polling districts and has been for many years without any issues. However, as in one of those polling districts, it's not in the polling place is not in the polling district. We've recommended that the whole of the polling district is designated as the polling place in case another venue becomes available. In this case, we have had a suggestion which we received actually quite late on as part of the review from a resident about the hub on Rye Hill as being a possible venue that we could consider using. Because of the fact that it did come in quite late in the review, it wasn't possible for us to visit the venue in time. We are making efforts to get in touch with the venue with a view to trying to visit, but we don't yet know whether it's suitable. So again, this is the thinking behind designating the whole of the polling district. The fifth change is a bit more of a simple one. This is over in Flimwell. The previous place for many years was the Flimwell Playing Field Pavilion. At the last polling review in 2019, we designated the whole of the polling district as the polling place because we were aware that a new village hall was being built in Flimwell, which we'd had some preliminary discussions on, and it looked like it would be a better venue going forward. So we designated the whole of the polling district so that we could change to using the village hall. We did use the village hall when it became available at the subsequent election. It's considered a very good venue. We've not had any complaints about it, and I think it would be the preferable venue going forward. So we're now proposing that we designate that as the permanent polling place. And then finally, in Westfield, similar to Rye Foreign. We've got a venue that we've been using for many years, the Westfield Church Hall. However, it's used for 2 polling districts, one of which it's not in the polling district. So again, we're proposing that we have the whole of the polling district designated as the polling place to allow flexibility for us to look at alternative venues if one becomes available. We have actually got one in mind that we are going to look at, which is the Westfield Community Hall, which is in the village. However, we've been attempting to make contact. We've not yet been able to arrange a viewing, so therefore it wasn't possible to see it as part of the review and propose it in time. So well, that's the 6 changes. There are obviously comments that we've received on other venues as well, so I'm more than happy to answer questions on any aspect of the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. As you would have realised from the bulk of the report, this is a very substantial piece of work involving consultation over many, many different polling stations and wards, and so I'd like to thank you for the enormous amount of work that must have gone into that and for your report. And now we come to the point where members may wish to ask you questions, and of course those questions may be about what Richard has already said, or you may want to question him about any of the details in Appendix 2. Because we will, as a group, be asked to say yes to the whole of Appendix 2, not just the ones that have been summarised just now. Councillor Field, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to say how grateful I am you haven't tinkered again with the polling places in Battle, because they aren't in the polling district necessarily, but everybody knows where to go and the parking's good. So thank you very much for that. I have, though, bizarrely received comments in relation to the church room in Crowhurst, and it hasn't been made to me in regard to any of the other churches in my division in which people vote. And the comment is that if you have to go through a church to get to a polling station, persons not of that religion might feel prohibited from going into that polling station because it's not their church, if they're of a different faith. I've not heard anybody say it in relation to any of the others, but it certainly has been said to me in relation to Crowhurst. And we used to vote very successfully in the village hall in Crowhurst, which had good parking and good facilities and was all round, in my view, much better. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Yeah, very good point. So two points really. I think addressing the query regarding the venue and the fact that it is a church. Yes, it's quite right. We do. There's no law or no legislation that says we can't use a church as a polling place. However, we do try to avoid using it where possible. We've got a number of venues throughout the area where we're using a church hall rather than the church itself. We do have a couple where we're actually using the church. The
2 polling stations in Battle are actually in churches.
Yeah.
That hasn't been a problem.
Yeah, no, as I say, there are a couple where that's the case. It's something that we try and take a pragmatic view on. If it's something that we do receive complaints about, we take that into account. And we've not had any complaints about it before, either at this review or the previous couple. I think it's a reasonable point for someone to make. And I think if there is an alternative venue, we would use one. But it's balancing the needs of the electors for the area. So I certainly don't want to dismiss that complaint. What I would say in this situation in Crowhurst, the village hall I'm aware of. I did actually, because we've used the church hall since I've been here since 2016, and I actually did query within the team why we weren't using the village hall, because I understand it is considered a better venue, got suitable facilities. It basically comes down to the fact, because it's next door to the school, that the school children use it at lunch times for their lunch break. So essentially all the children go over there and have their lunch in the village hall. If we were to use the venue, we wouldn't be able to do that. And from what I understand, if the children can't go to the village hall for lunch, it might necessitate the school being closed or problems in that way. So I think it would be, at the very least, an unpopular decision, if not outright not possible. We did look at an alternative venue within Crowhurst that was proposed. So I can't remember the exact name of it. I think it was the Crowhurst Christian Healing Centre. Did make contact with them, but unfortunately they've said they wouldn't be available for use. So we're certainly happy to look at other venues as well. I think as well with that venue that the pathway itself to get into the venue is not great from a disability point of view. So yeah, there are issues, but I think at present we're not aware of anywhere more suitable.
I would say people who complain, I do advise to get a postal vote, but I just don't think it's ideal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sills, for raising that interesting point. Do I have further questions, first of all? Councillor Rathbone-Area, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a bit rhetorical question in a way. Why don't we use schools anymore? This is given the comments about St Stephen's and Hewhurst. Some residents felt that it's quite far away from them and not within walking distance, some of the other residents. And when there were schools nearer, I think I know the answer, but could you just expand?
Richard.
Thank you. So the use of schools is, as you can imagine, fairly controversial. We do have, or I should say the returning officer does have the power to use a school if they need to, but we try to avoid it wherever possible because it's very unlikely that the school would be able to remain open. We did used to use the school in Netherfield, which was an issue in itself because we did get complaints from parents, understandably. That was a much smaller school than obviously the schools that we've got here, and I think in Bexhill. And I think if we were to approach the school with the suggestion that we use them, they'd understandably be quite upset, as parents would, and so on and so forth. I would say the only point I make on that, we don't insist that any school closes, so we would be happy to use an area or a room in the school. We have been told by schools before that we've said they have to close. We wouldn't say that, but I think for safeguarding reasons and things such as that, the school would feel it necessary. So, okay.
Do you want to come back on that?
Only that obviously there's in St Stephen's there is Bexhill Academy, which would be a great location for Poland, but I understand why it'd be closed.
Thank you for raising that issue. Do I have any further questions, please? Councillor Delaney, please.
It was just something to note, really. There are two polling districts coming into the community centre, and I know in the northern district there isn't a venue, an alternative venue at the moment. But just with the development by Bovis across the top of Pepsham, I know there's a community pavilion going in there. So perhaps for the next review, there might be an alternative that would be within the district.
Very happy to look at that going forward. I think, again, it's the timing of the review on that. But yeah, that certainly sounds something that would be worth looking at for future. Thank you.
Thank you for the suggestion. Councillor Biggs, please.
Thank you. It says there you're going to look for alternative venues if one becomes available. We've got till May. In an extreme case, nothing becomes available. Would you consider a mobile polling station?
Sorry, Councillor, can I ask just which area you're referring to?
If you look, it says Sigley is therefore proposed the whole polling district is designated as a polling place to allow an alternative venue to be used if one becomes available. You use that in a couple of the 6 bits there. So we got till May, but if you couldn't find one to become available, would you use a mobile polling station?
Richard, yeah.
We could, but I don't think in any of those cases that I've identified here, a mobile polling station would be preferable. There is a possibility of using one, but there's a number of factors with mobile polling stations that we kind of view them as a last resort. I'll suggest the obvious one first of all, which is the cost. They're very expensive to hire. We're talking several thousand, as opposed to a few hundred for a polling venue usually. That in itself would not be the only reason we'd say no, because of the nature of mobile polling stations, they're just not usually as accessible and as spacious and have the facilities that the venues we already have. So yes, we have considered it in the past, but I don't think with any of these it would be a better solution than what we already have, in my view. But I'm happy to if you feel it would.
So basically, what you're saying there, if one becomes available, you're pretty sure by next May you'll have a polling station available.
No,
if not, the extreme is what would happen if one wasn't available. That's the point.
No, sorry. Just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that we identify an alternative before May. So when I talk about designating the whole of the polling district as the polling place, I'm talking between now and the next polling review, where it could be redesignated. So I'm talking about the next 5-year period. I'm not proposing that we. So if I take, for example, Sidley there, I'm not suggesting that there's any issue with us using Sidley City Freedom Church as the joint venue. I think it's a satisfactory venue, other than it's not in the polling district for one of the two areas. So I think we have a venue for each of these areas, which is the venue in most cases that we've used at the most recent election. It's just to give us the flexibility that if between now and 5 years' time another venue either is built or becomes available, that in consultation with the people identified at the beginning of the report, that we can then use a different venue.
Just to say, Councillor Biggs, that that's a situation that occurs quite often within this district, that there is a place that can be used, it's just outside, but still convenient to the people who are the electors in that particular ward. So thank you for your suggestion.
Yeah, I can appreciate it. I have been a poll clerk for the last so many elections. So
Then you know all about it. Councillor Timpey, please.
Thank you, Chair. Reading through all the comments on the various polling stations, there's a theme, isn't there? That there's either people think it's great or people moan because it's too far. So you can't win, no matter where you put it. But the general consensus seems to be that central is best, especially in my wards, which is Sackville. Can I just point out, though, there were some quite negative comments about Manor Barn, but we stepped in at the very last moment to help you out. And, we all knew it wasn't perfect. So, but it's very interesting. I hope the public's comments are actually taken into account, because they're really quite. I mean, I don't think we didn't have many responses, did we? But I hope that they're read anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Timpey. Are there any further questions? Other questions from? There are no more in the room. Other questions from the people on the internet? Yes, Councillor Cooper, please.
Oh, good evening, Richard. It was just a quick question about the Westfield Church. Why is it not in the polling district?
I'll be honest, I don't know historically why it was chosen, because that predates my time here. We do have quite a few situations, particularly outside of Bexhill in some of the more rural areas, where quite often you've only got one venue, which is sort of the focal point of the village. And I think it was probably a situation where it was a case of necessity. I think it was a venue that everyone in the village was aware of, and it was identified as being the most suitable venue for both polling districts. And I think, actually, just to follow on from the point that Councillor Tempo made, that sometimes, whilst you want something that is central within the polling district, in some cases it may not be the most suitable venue. Is sometimes outside of the polling district, but it's still, unfortunately, the most suitable that we have. We could continue to designate it as the polling place going forward, as we have previously, but I think from the point of view of trying to look for an ideal, when we've got the sense that there is possibly another venue, I think that's where we'd like to look further within the village. I should note with that particular venue as well, although we've not had a great deal of complaints as part of this review, about the Westfield Church Hall. We have had comments previously about the pathway going up into the venue. So it's another thing where we're trying to look for the ideal venue and just make sure we're continuing to make efforts to look for the best venue. And it may well be that, depending on the facilities of another venue that going forward, that may prove to be the better venue for both polling districts. But for now, I think we need to focus on the one where it's outside of the district.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We now come to that point of the meeting where any observations you would like to make in relation to any of this particular scheme would be welcome. Are there further remarks from members of the committee, please? There aren't. Right, so now we come to the recommendations. The first one is the polling scheme in Appendix 2 be approved. Do I have someone to propose that, please? Councillor Timpey, thank you.
That, yes.
And a seconder? Councillor Thill, thank you. Those in favour of the officer recommendation, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And the second one is to do with the delegated authority. The Chief Executive's current delegated authority to agree necessary changes of polling place after consultation with the Chair of the Licensing and General Purposes Committee, relevant district ward members, county council members and parish councils should continue. Should any of the consultees not agree the proposed change, the decision to be brought to the Licensing and General Purposes Committee and full council for determination. Do I have the proposal for that second one? Councillor Field again and Councillor Timpey. So those in favour, please. Again, that's unanimous. So we've come to the end, I think, of our work for today. Can I take this opportunity of thanking Richard because he's clearly shown the extraordinary knowledge he has of every question that you could possibly raise, of all the places in the district and all the things that have been said about it, all the arguments thrown against each individual place, and the sort of degree of depth there, the degree of detail to grasp with it all. Very, very impressive indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, members, for your questions. That's much appreciated. And finally, I'd like to thank Louise Hollingsworth for her work on behalf of the committee behind the scenes. So thank you very much, and I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.